This is the ATI Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the ATI Podcast. Barrett here, Josh on scene at Earth Mother Health Foods, and we are with Mary Lee Visnovske. How are you doing today, Mary Lee?
I'm doing just fine.
Thank you for doing the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, it's our pleasure. And of course, this is Women's Month here on the ATI Podcast, and we're finishing strong, and no better guest to have here to round things off for us than Mary Lee, I feel like. It was very special for me personally to be able to sit down and talk to Mary Lee today and feature her on our episode and her business because it's my very first job as well.
Yeah,
So,
it's a beautiful place.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
you did.
It's a
and
beautiful place that you built.
Thank you.
100%.
and outside of the professional piece of it, Mary Lee's been a mentor to me over the years and a grandparent figure to me. I didn't have any grandparents for the most part growing up, and taught me a lot of life lessons and learned things by proxy.
Taught you how to drive, Bill? Taught you how to
Yeah,
drive?
her husband taught me how to drive. Almost wrecked their vehicle, and he was extremely patient with me
That's
on
awesome.
several occasions. But yeah, just a great people, great family, great store.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And you were a great person to work with.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I will definitely say a lot of life lessons learned from you guys, and so many stories over the years. And really, I guess this whole relationship even started with just us being customers at your store
Yes,
here.
that what did.
And this was back whenever the store was located on Karsh Boulevard when we started coming. But I know that technically the building that you're here in East Harrison Street, right? 220 East Harrison Street is where you actually started, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So how many
I
years
was
ago was
here
that?
for I started in 1990, actually, but I didn't buy it. And I think that's right. Would that be the right amount of years? I started in 90 and I bought it in 90. So I had it a little bit before I bought it.
Okay.
Because it belonged to the other people. And I was working for them.
I got
'Cause
you.
I didn't want to just walk in here and I don't know if I want this thing or not, So
Right.
I knew the stuff. I knew all about the vitamins and all that. But actually, if you want to know the truth, I bought it out of guilt. I would come over here to buy supplements from this lady that had it, and it was kind of a storefront for a church that they use a lot of the stuff out here. And every time I come in, she'd say, "You know what? You really need to buy this store." Oh, I said, "Yeah, but I've got my most favorite job I've ever had in my life. I'm a tour guide in St. Genevieve all these years, and that was so much fun and all this stuff." And anyway, and the last time that she said the right thing, put me on a guilt trip. I walked in here, back in there, and I was getting my stuff, and she said, "You know what? You could help a lot of people if you bought this store." I don't know, nothing like so I went home and told my husband what she said, and he said, "She's right." And that was it. That was what I came here on guilt 32 years ago.
That's amazing.
Well, I'm sure his reassurance helped things move
it
along
did.
as well.
Yeah. Well, he was so knowledgeable on all of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But we just lived on it. I mean, we lived on that type of diet and the whole bit.
Yeah. When you first started working here, were you under the impression that the owners were trying to actively sell it, or like why exactly were they trying to unload the business on you?
I don't know what that was all about. I don't know. I think she was tired of it.
I got you.
I think she'd been, and it really wasn't. They weren't setting the world on fire. I can tell you that. It was just. It was really just something to supplement that church.
I got you.
With what they had in here, and you could tell. I mean, because she only had one employee part time. I've got 5 or 6 all time. Now.
Yeah.
So it was a big difference.
Right.
Of course, I didn't have that kind of help right when I first started out. But
Sure.
It didn't take me long before I did.
Yeah.
Though. Well, your mom started here 24 years ago.
Yeah, it's been some time for sure. Close to. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess she did start in '99. That's right, because it was definitely before Y2K. Because I just remember that whole. A lot of my memory reference points are Y2K specifically, just because of all these big events. I was a teenager at the time, and I think about okay, did it happen before that or after? Just kind of like 9/11 is another kind of reference point. Everybody remembers. Yeah, everybody remembers where they were at on 9/11. I mean, I think kind of a more recent thing we could even talk about would be like COVID, for example.
Yes.
Everybody kind of remembers when the world shut down, right? I mean, it's a pretty common phrase that everybody uses. And I know that impacted things here, but I don't want to jump the gun too hard with that. So I know you started out here, Earth Mother Health Foods started out here specifically, but you ended up on Karsh Boulevard. That's where I became acquainted with you.
The building sold out from under me.
I got you.
And I was just renting.
Okay.
And I was not a happy camper, let me
would
tell
imagine.
you.
Yeah.
Because I was just getting my feet on the ground and getting things rolling. And I'd only been here like a couple, 2 or 3 years. But the good Lord knew what he was doing. Mm-hmm. Put me out there on Karsh and opened it up to the world. And then when this thing, the guy that had bought it out from under me went out of business. Mm-hmm. And one of the realtors said, Mary Lee, you were doing good down there in downtown. Why don't you buy that? Well, the guy who I was renting from up there wouldn't give me a lease. He wanted me to buy that building. It wasn't big enough to start. We'd already outgrown it. And he kept wanting me to buy that building, so he wouldn't give me a lease. And boy, you talk about something scary when you're running a business without a lease.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So that's when I walked across there, and everybody at the bank was grinning all the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I bought this building and named it Earth Mother Health Foods.
And you've been here at this location specifically since the move back off of Karsh.
Yes.
At least since, 98 or somewhere in that range? 97?
Yeah, right along in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I know I can speak uniquely from my own experience, having started as a customer and then into an employee and then a customer again, I guess, technically. But I know that you've just had so many opportunities to help people in general.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
That's my goal. That's why I'm still here at 83 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to quit something where you're helping people. Absolutely. And I help people every single day I work. And so does everybody that works for me.
Yeah.
So does everybody that works for me.
Well, I mean, obviously, and I can speak to this too, a lot of your employees have been here for decades.
Yes.
Yes. And they've been here for decades for a reason, and that's under good leadership. And whenever you're here with those type of motives, that's the whole reason everybody kind of buys into that mindset. And I think, just kind of that newer phrase, synergy, conveys to the customers in that environment that you guys are breeding. And I think that's why, I mean, you got a lot of loyal customers too.
Oh, yeah.
Customers you know by name, people that
goodness.
have moved away and call in orders.
Now, I don't remember names real good anymore, Barrett, but I remember what's wrong with them. Yeah. That's kind of embarrassing sometimes,
Sure.
Hey, you.
You come in and we did this last time.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm teasing. I know a lot of their names. But there's too many you can't. It worried me that something was wrong with me because my son told me, said, Mom, you've been in business almost 33 years.
Right. Yeah.
There's no way you remember everybody comes through that door.
Right.
But oddly enough, I can almost always remember what's wrong with them. So that must have been the important thing because that was how I was going to help them.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure, I can speak from my years here, but you've got way more experience in this, and that is you really don't know what's coming through the door sometimes too, and that can be a little challenging. I mean, it's just like communicating with anybody else. You just kind of find out what they're looking for and that sort of thing, but I've seen it happen. People open up with life stories to you that you don't know from Adam, and I know you've got a lot of life experience. Well, that's true. That'd be a lot to remember. But you've got a lot of life experience too. That is always it's one thing to have sympathy for people, but you're very good about being empathetic with people.
That's right.
That takes it to a different level, and I think that again kind of speaks to the experience that people are going to have at Earth Mother Health Foods, and just the service that you provide.
Thank you.
And
that's my goal.
I've seen it time and time again. I've seen I'd be back there, lowly teenage Barrett Lewis, doing bulk items, and somebody would come in with some troublesome query and interact with you, and within 5 minutes people are in tears, and you guys are sharing heartfelt stories and things like that, and it's nothing unnatural.
No, no.
You got there naturally. It was through the progression of just heartfelt conversation.
Right.
And you don't get that at mom and pop shops,
Right.
even in a lot of places, retail stores. We can even get more broader with that, but it's just such a unique experience that customers get to have here at Earth Mother.
Well, we strive for that. That's our goal,
And another cool thing that I always took note of too, early on as a customer and then as an employee, is your engagement with the community. Just beyond, okay, I'm here, the lights are on, come see me, I'll help you. You're involved in things. You're involved in things like Welcome Wagon, or where you're involved in,
And I try so hard to help the homeless and those that, really, like I had a boy like that working for me all day today, outside, and they're so grateful. And I just, it makes me feel good to help them,
Sure. And people that are in positions to help sometimes don't, for no reason other than, I guess, they don't want to, or they don't want the aggravation. And I mean, that's even rare today that people do things like that, for sure. But I know that too, in your opportunities that you've had to engage with the community, just beyond being a store, but out, quite frankly, giving a public service in some instances. But you've been engaged in things like country days. You've held special events here at the store specifically. There's just so many ways that you've engaged the community. Is that something that you were just innately interested in doing, or was that a business strategy? Like, how did that just all come about?
Kind of born with it, I come from a family that's just the way it is. We just help others, and we find ways to help others. It's just, my mom was like that, my grandma was like that, and I guess my great grandma too. I don't remember her, but it was just kind of our goal that's what God put us on earth for here, is to kind of help each other,
And folks might be, I want to bring this up as well, noticing where we're kind of broadcasting from here too. Not only does Mary Lee have Earth Mother Health Food Stores here, and has a lot of opportunities on that side of the shop, but also we're in a Native American museum that Mary Lee has actually started inside of her building, kind of a passion project that you've started in the last few years.
I always wanted to do something to, to let the world know about our Native Americans and how much we need to respect them.
Absolutely.
And anyway, and it does my heart good to walk in this room. And you wouldn't believe the people that come in here and give me this stuff. Everybody's got a drop Indian Blood's brought something in here, I think. And anyway, and they want it in here. And they don't want no money for it. They just want to display it. And it makes you feel good. And it made me feel good before COVID, when I could feed the Cherokees when they came through on the Trail of Tears.
Right.
Because, see, I got quite a few relatives living in Oklahoma, and anyway, one of them's right up there on that, right there. That's one of my cousin's boys. He was with the trail one year when they came through, and
very cool.
My son would come up from Georgia, and he'd fix a great big meal out here in the courtyard, and they loved it. It was such a nice thing to do.
Absolutely.
Anyway, actually, I think maybe down the road we'll have more Cherokee recognition in here. I had somebody that's head of the Cherokees in Missouri came in not too long ago and talked to me. Not that I don't, I honor all Native Americans.
Absolutely.
Right.
And anyway, the Cherokees weren't the only ones. There were lots of them.
Sure. And Missouri, too, just geographically where it's at, it was a lot of intermingling of various Indian tribes as well, just through this area, in the Midwest. But also, a lot of those tribes are even more regional and segregated from one another on account of the Trail of Tears, as you mentioned.
Yes.
That they started to get pushed west and onto reservations and things like that. There's so much history that's been lost too, though. I want to bring that up, and the fact that you're kind of help preserving some of that.
Yeah,
here.
we're trying. We're trying. And I've even been making bracelets, and I sell them. They're made with a Job's Tears, which is a little seed-like thing. It looks like a tear that grows. We used to grow it at home, but the ones I'm getting, someone's saving for me, and they're growing them on the Cherokee Nation.
Oh,
and so I'm getting the Cherokee Nation Job's Tears. Some people call them corn beads or whatever. And then I mix them with some. I've used almost all my old jewelry. I still got some left, but people bring me that too, old jewelry, and I'll mix them with those things. And then the profits of them, we've got a separate thing going on the register, and the profits on them go to a couple of major, the Cherokees, and there's other tribes too, because they were all Indians,
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you've even too in the past, I know while I was working here, you would go to some of the big powwows and things that they would have, regionally and stuff too. So I know you've had the opportunity to kind of
and the stomp
network
dances,
and connect with other people.
I've been to all that kind of stuff, the stomp dances and all that. I've had a lot of. It helped me having those relatives and telecom.
Definitely,
yeah,
definitely. Of course, this is something we even talked about before we started recording today, and the fact that a part of Native American history and stuff, so much of that has been lost, and the short of that is just kind of whitewashing of their existence in and of itself. And they were a people of vocal history, and passing down stories from generation to generation and things like that. And it's whereas more of the white imperialism that came over from England and stuff was more written history.
Yeah, I've been keeping books for thousands of years.
Right. So whenever you read a lot of these books, I say that to say this: you hear from a white man's perspective and not the Native American perspective.
Well, they had it all figured out. You know what I mean?
Right.
They were more in tune almost with the good Lord than a lot of people that claim to be.
I agree. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, they really were. They just really.
And I think a lot of that gets, from corruption, with power and politics and money.
Absolutely.
And that's, that's where it was a little bit separate. They respected the land and lived off the land.
Right.
Not so much of the power and politic grab.
Well, just like I always like to bring it. See, I got those. You can't see them on the. We'll explain them to you. There's two dream catchers up there, kind of like a dream catcher, and it's heroes, code talkers. In World War I, it was the Cherokee and the Choctaw.
Yeah.
And in World War II, it was the Navajos. That was clever.
Yes.
I mean, my word, that was clever to do that.
Yeah. Did they figure out that they were using Cherokee and Choctaw in World War I, and that's why they went to more complex.
Yeah. Well, it was different ones anyway. And Sacagawea, Lewis and Clark. Well, they'd have never got where they was going if they hadn't had her.
For sure.
And so we owe them a lot of credit.
Absolutely. And some of the pieces that we're referencing today too, we're going to be making some photo dumps on our social media too. We're going to take some pictures of this room because we don't have the ability while we're live streaming and recording to show you everything, but there's so many fascinating things in here that we'll probably be referencing on and off throughout the conversation that we don't want the viewers to miss out on. And hopefully we'll pique your interest in coming in and paying Mary Lee a visit at some point too.
It's free.
For sure.
It's free.
Yeah.
We don't charge you anything. Yeah, if somebody wants to give us some money to give to him, we will. But we don't charge for that. The ones right up here represent my native bloodline.
Okay.
And that's we can't see them, but when we do the thing, we can talk about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when did you start this museum part of the business? Last 3 years or so?
Right when COVID started.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I just had it all set up, ready to roll, and here comes COVID. And that's how long it's been. I had all kinds of big ideas for it, but then that kind of slowed it all down,
Sure.
So,
the world had a way of halting at that time. I know I can speak from, everybody can speak from their own perspectives, how it impacted them, but I'm in the hospitality industry, and, we had one of our best years on the books forecasted, and it just totally pulled the rug out from under us that entire year.
Yeah.
And, some people were fortunate enough to be able to get through from in that period, whether they, received some of those government loans and things like that. But other people weren't that fortunate in those times. Did you see it impact your business here at Earth Mother Health Foods very drastically?
Well, yeah, because it was an illness.
Yeah.
Right.
And we become so well known because I don't know whether I belong to a National Products Association. I pay for that to belong to it. And everything in this store has to be what it's supposed to be.
Gotcha.
And a lot of these Johnny come latelys, you can say it's got a ginseng in it. It might be half a drop. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where ours are third party tested. Everything in here I can only buy from companies that are third party tested.
Gotcha.
So that kind of puts us in a different category. And right now we are the largest health food store in Southeast Missouri.
And you guys have kind of maintained that certification, I guess, if you will, for quite some time. I know really kind of the only place that was really close to this for any period of time was down in Cape, if I recall correctly. And even then, they didn't necessarily have all the same things.
They're not near as big as this.
Right. Yeah, or the variety that you have as well.
Yeah, and now that's a nice store in Cape, but this is a bigger store.
But you guys also have things like educational books.
Oh, yeah.
Things like the wellness dictionary.
Yeah.
I forget the name.
Well, there's a whole room of books, you know.
Yeah. You just have a book section, actually, whereas these other places don't. But even whenever you had the smaller store,
I still had books.
You still had books, and you had a education, focus on education.
Every department has just got bigger.
Yeah.
Because I started out with everything that's over there. And even the homeopathic, we're really pushing that a lot now and trying to get into that more. And I got a couple of people I have a lot of employees, and they're really studying, so they can help people. Yeah. Because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's many phases to health food stores through people who aren't perhaps smartened up on it or unfamiliar with the territory. And that is that generally, whenever you think of health food stores, you're going to be thinking about vitamins, which that is definitely a huge piece of the business. However, there are other things. There's other supplements, such as things for energy that Mary Lee has alluded to, such as ginseng.
Things for cancer.
Yeah. Things for various ailments that maybe you are afflicted with. I know that a big piece and kind of one of your passion projects, too, is helping people with celiac disease.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys have plenty of stuff for that here specifically.
Yes, we do.
Special teas.
Celiac.
Yeah, right. So you can speak uniquely on that, too.
Yeah. I've had it for about 20-some-odd years.
And if somebody's never heard of celiac before, kind of detail what that is for folks.
Well, it's an autoimmune disease, but you can't do wheat, rye, oats, or barley.
Oh, man.
You can do oats if they've never been grown on a field where wheat was grown. Our biggest problem is wheat. And, I've always thought about, it's kind of interesting about the Indians. The Indians there wasn't no wheat. You know what I mean? I wonder if, there was wheat in the world.
Sure.
But they did corn. Everything about them was corn. Right. See, I can do corn. Thank God I can do corn,
Yeah.
But anyway, no, that's, I've had it for 20-some-odd years, but I'm 83 and I'm only on one pill from the doctor. And that's to keep your blood pressure from soaring. And at this age, if the doctor tells me that's kind of important, I thought I might do that. Because every once in a while I get riled enough that it gets...
I hear that for sure.
Yeah, but anyway, that's...
But there's other stuff inside of your store as well. I kind of mentioned the bulk items specifically.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, the biggest thing we've got you won't find anywhere else, all them bulk herbs.
Yeah.
See that? That's like a history thing. It's like you don't see them in any health food stores. You used to, for a while, see them in some of those little things where you could get them yourself. Well, I'm not going to have that because some people spit when they talk. You know what I mean? Right. That's not going to happen here.
Yeah, I hear you.
And but anyway, that's that I hear that all the time about how nice it is to be able to buy those bulk herbs, and we really push them. And.
Yeah, that's cool to have something like that.
We got over 300. Over 300.
Oh, wow.
Over 300 different bulk herbs, And more, we do a market on those. People are buying them all the time.
And things that you've even expanded on that, though, too, because a lot of people come in for the bulk herbs to, make their own teas, but now you have your own tea section, and you kind of curated some of your own tea mixtures and things like that, too. Yes. And that's kind of taken off for you.
Yes, it is. Well, it's a learning process here all the time. There isn't a day that we don't learn new things. And then we can help more people.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about, so.
And you have grocery items, you have home cleaning items as well here. So there's just a little bit of everything.
And meats. We have meats. You have frozen meats. And we have groceries. We have eggs. We have, just about.
Free-range eggs.
I have a guy that comes here. And about 10, 15 years ago, maybe not quite that long, a doctor in St. Louis told him, said, you find yourself a good health food store and that's all you buy. You don't buy anything from anywhere else. And this guy has been buying from me, and he looked like death warmed over when he started coming in here. Mm-hmm. And he has, he is just in good shape. Fact is he's retired from a job, and I don't know. I think he should have kept on working, But anyway, he's just in real good shape. But he doesn't buy anything except from Earth Mother Health Foods.
Oh wow!
Isn't that cool?
That's probably your biggest.
Then we've watched him go from being real frail to being real healthy. Right. That's been awesome. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you guys also with your location, it's kind of cool because they've over the years, and you've seen this change more than anybody, Mary Lee, is the fact that how they've kind of tried to restore the downtown area here in Farmington. And there's a lot of history in this building in and of itself. This used to be a part of a train station for Farmington, right? Or
this was the first railroad freight.
Okay.
Right here. When one time the sidewalk out here fell in, and you could still see the railroad ties down in there. Yeah,
That's
they
crazy.
were still there.
They're just built on top of it.
Yeah, and anyway, no, it's and this part here, right where we're sitting, was where they backed the tractor trailers in, and that's why that's so tall. And then it goes all the way back up. You can see a ramp where they rolled the stuff up there, And it was the first railroad freight of Farmington.
That's wild.
How about that?
I know that you can see some of the older, or at least used to. I don't know. I haven't went to go look for it personally and recently, but at the factory here in Farmington, they had like old newspaper articles and clippings and stuff on display there where you could actually go and see. And I remember a few years back going and seeing the old train station area that was here, train depot or whatever it was, and I told my wife Pam, I was like, this is Earth Mother, and she was like, what? No, no, it's not. And I'm like, oh yes, it is. And at the time, you still had the big gravel filling in the void out here because it had collapsed in on the sidewalk. And I said, you know where that gravel's at? I was like, actually, if that wasn't there, you'd be able to see the railroad ties down.
That's right. That's right.
It's wild to think that was right here.
Yeah, I think about that a lot, And it is. It's real interesting. But there's a kid that came out here one day. I went to one of the city meetings. They were talking about everything it was historic, had to stay historic, and all this, that, and the other. And this kid come by and said, Earth Mother, don't worry about that too much. They all call me Earth Mother instead of my name. It has become my name. But anyway, and he said, your building doesn't look very historic. I thought, no, I guess it doesn't, But my daughter painted all the signs on the building, all the different things that's on the outside. Yeah. And so that made it neat too,
Absolutely. Did a great job too.
Yeah, that's great.
And that kind of infuses back into just so many elements of the community is used here. And one spirit of your business that I've always really enjoyed and kind of, I feel like I've kind of even taken on myself is kind of the DIY aspect of it. Do it yourself. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of what you do here. You've taken a lot on your shoulders to learn and do yourself, and you've always been about pulling up your bootstraps and getting to work.
Getting right in there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that everybody can definitely take note of and learn from you.
Yeah, well, I always tell them when they come in, I said, when you walk through that door, you're no longer a stranger. And then if I want to get cute and funny, sometimes I say, we're all just a pack of hillbillies. Just come on in.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
And we're just all country folks, and we're just ready to help, So.
I know that there's been so much experiences that you could probably pull from, and we could ask you so many questions, but some of the things I was real fascinated to ask you about amidst our conversation today was kind of some of the more challenging times throughout business that you've kind of faced and how you overcame some of those obstacles. Is there any particular instance that stands out in your mind outside? I know we just talked about COVID, but were there some challenges that you faced here?
Let me tell you, I've been through challenges. The first part of this thing, we couldn't even have advertisement in the same room with the product.
Oh, man.
If you can't imagine what that was like. And it's always, and I can remember we were warned on the phone that they might be trying to trip us up and say something like we'd be prescribing, which we can't prescribe. We can only we can talk about how it helps our husband or our child or something like that, but we can't really prescribe. We never tried to. But anyway, I went through some real rough years right there to start out with. So, and when you get a phone call, you think, well, now, is this really a customer?
Right.
Or is this somebody trying to mess with me?
Right.
But we don't have that anymore.
Yeah. So kind of what you're talking about is kind of just like, we'll just call it community resistance to the type of business that you're running here, and people that will say, even probably obviously skeptics.
Yes. Oh,
in
my
the sense
word.
that, they don't think that what you're providing here.
But you know what? These years have kind of proven that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah. But I could definitely see that being a huge part of the challenge. I know that occasionally I saw some of that as an employee here too, was people were skeptical of the things that, that you would tell them, the stories that you would tell them about friends, relatives, other customers on whatever ailments that they had, and they took this product and it improved. And I think another piece that people get wrong about health food in general, this is a big statement that I always hear, is like, you can't live off those vitamins. Well, they're called supplements for a reason.
Yes.
To supplement a healthy lifestyle.
Yes, that's right.
It's not that there's nobody here going to tell you that, you need to live off a source of life.
You got to have good food.
Right, absolutely.
These are supplements, just exactly what we said. I have trouble, even when I'm out and about. I was someplace over the weekend, and this lady was going on and on to my friend who I was sitting by about she had a diabetic condition. And I said, I couldn't help it. I said, ma'am, I'm not asking you to come there, but there's a lot of supplements help a lot of people with diabetes that we've got that really, really help. And she looked at me like, But anyway, so I didn't say any more to her. But it's like God almost pushes me to do that. You know what I mean? Like, now you can help that person. Open your mouth, and so.
Right.
And who knows, one of these days she might stroll in here, But
yeah, could be.
Anyway, because I can't help but tell them when I would feel guilty not telling them.
Right.
Yeah, because then you think about it and be like, oh,
I
could have said this, could have done that. Yeah, right. And people make statements sometimes too, or tell you about things going on in their life, and they don't know where you're coming from or anything like that, or what expertise you might be able to provide in those situations. And it's funny to kind of look at it. Is it fate that these people are being brought to me in these situations?
I think about that a lot,
and I'm sure that's something that you constantly are thinking about.
Well, I tell you what, I say this every day. Everybody that comes in here, I pray for every person that comes through that door every day, and God knows their names. I don't have to know none of them because I couldn't remember them anyway. You know what I mean?
Sure, I hear you.
But I do. I pray for every person that walks through that door, or has ever walked through that door. Because that's what we're here for. I feel like it's our God's mission.
Another perspective of the health food piece too is, this is the way I've always looked at it, but I basically grew up in the store, so you take that for what it's worth. Is the fact that I think I would rather come to things like in a more natural way versus, go get a pill bottle from the doctor that's got a bunch of things that I can't pronounce to begin with and can't figure out how they dialed it up in the lab as it is anyways. Right. There's a lot of things that people can come here, what actually grew on this planet naturally, and take those things. It's going to be more well received by everybody.
There's something out there growing for everything you can have wrong with you.
Well, I mean, I'm like terribly allergic to poison ivy, and a lot of people don't realize, just typically, 10 to 20 feet from that plant is another plant that'll help you with that,
Right.
And I know that was kind of like some of the first things that we actually started becoming customers at Earth Mother for. Is there was some homeopathic sublingual for me to take specifically because I'm just so bad poison oak and ivy, and it was like one of the few things that actually helped me.
And it works.
Right. Yeah, and you can even almost kind of take that preventatively if you have it real bad to keep from it, because I would almost just have to take it in the summer constantly, especially. We'll cut a lot of grass, stuff like that, to keep from getting poison ivy. But I think a large part of that is the fact that it actually uses, again, back to things on this planet.
It's kind of like, I always use this, of course, I'm all country, It's kind of like the plant, whatever it is like a hair from the dog that bit you.
Yeah.
So somehow that will activate your body to fight it. Yeah.
Right. And there's people will go into their yard and see, oh, that's a weed, and they'll pull it and throw it away. Whatever those things are, are just kind of umbrella term right now, blanketing as such. But things like burdock, for example.
Yeah.
I know that's again, doing a lot of landscaping in my life. I see a lot of that growing out naturally at places. But it actually has a lot of medicinal purposes.
Cleanser. It's such a blood cleanser.
Speaking of cleansers, I'm glad you brought that up. And that's another thing that a lot of people don't do or think about, and that is cleansing yourself.
Oh, that's so important.
It is extremely
important. You wash outside your body.
Right.
And inside needs it too. but you don't have to use soap.
Right. We prefer that you didn't.
We prefer that you didn't, yeah, because it does. You really cleanse the body. Well, sweating helps.
Yes.
To cleanse the body, but you got to get in there and the liver and all the things.
Colon, bladder,
liver, everything needs a good cleansing. My husband was kind of proof of that, living as long as he did with that. Yeah.
I know that the kind of like when going back to COVID was running rampant, and there was just so many people throwing darts at the wall trying to figure out what to do about this and that, and I don't think anybody ever got it right, even the scientists, in some respects, to be honest with you. And that is, one thing that was going rampant was what was it, the horse dewormer, ivermectin?
Oh yes,
right? That people were taking.
Yes,
and killing some people, I'm pretty sure.
Well, if they were taking it in too high doses, but there was actually, if you're supposed to, even whenever you go buy that for cattle. Yeah. You're supposed to dilute that. You're not supposed to just go pour a bottle on a cow's throat.
Yeah.
Read the label, folks.
But the biggest thing we sold during that COVID thing was stuff to enhance the immune system.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was just, it was unreal how much of that we sold. Fact is, we had trouble getting it sometimes, but
supply chain
I'll tell you a cute little story. Mullein. A lot of them call it mullein or whatever, but it's mullein. It's, what it looks like. It's a fuzzy plant and it grows real tall. Mm-hmm. We got to, this is the true story. We got to where we couldn't get it for a while. It was just out of stock, And out here in these rock flower beds, 2 big mullein grew out there. And I told him, Lord, you're doing a good job, but we're going to take a whole lot more too. But where they came from was a mystery.
That is wild.
I mean, it was wild because it was 2, and one of them grew to be about 6 feet tall. And it was, anyway, we didn't use it for medicine, but it was a fun thing to talk about.
There just in case you needed it.
Yeah, just in case we needed it. But that mulleins, it's awesome the way it works. It really is.
The funny thing I was going to mention too, getting back to the folks using ivermectin at the time, and to drive this point home as how important it is to actually cleanse yourself, though,
big time.
Is that people were taking and they're like, I feel so much better. Well, a lot of cases is people have never done any type of cleanser. They're like, no, it's a horse dewormer. So, I'm going to tell you, folks, the large majority of us are all running around with some type of parasite or something inside of us, especially if you eat red meat. Just the statistics on that are crazy. So do your homework. But for you to do an actual cleanse for the first time in your life, you're going to probably feel like a brand new person. Yeah. So I think that was a lot of the phenomenon that was going on with that. I know a big thing that they were advocating for was vitamin D. Mm-hmm. But people were ODing on vitamin D because they're taking too much of it.
Yeah, my mom actually, she's a nurse. And she works in trauma. And she had overheard a doctor talking about that, I guess, and she started taking it. Well, then she started getting really sick. Okay, and she ended up in the hospital, and she was, it was too much of it.
Well, something like 113% beyond.
I don't remember what it was.
Some obscene number.
It was nuts,
But we've got how much you're supposed to take.
Right.
We got books to tell you how much you're supposed to take. So we don't
tell you on the bottle, too.
Tell you on the bottle, yeah.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Right.
Still on the horse theme.
Yeah.
Well, I know that there's just so many countless lives that we could probably detail even talking today, the people that you've been able to help. What are maybe some of the more bigger special examples, maybe to you, Mary Lee, of interactions that you've had with the people in the past that you've helped, and just, it's just something that's really stuck with you over the years?
I think my own husband. Yeah. Yeah. He started out with Rocky Mountain tick fever, and they couldn't recognize it because they didn't look for it here. And by the time they figured out what he had, and our doctor actually was a doctor from St. Genevieve that called the blood specialist from, forget what war would that have been then, Desert Storm, I think, maybe.
Early 90s?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And he, they figured out the two of them together, so that's Rocky Mountain tick fever. It wasn't Lyme's like they're all looking for. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, they got him, but they were a little too late with it, and it had gone into a rare form of cancer called hemangioperitocytoma. And Bill was in bad shape, and he he was unbelievable. Though once we got once we got through with all the stuff the doctors were, not that I'm knocking doctors, we got to have doctors, but
Right.
once we got through all that and just got him in here on the supplements, flushed his body real good, but he was down to 129 pounds, and he and he never weighed this much. He always weighed about 165, 70, and because he was inactive, actually one of the operations they did crippled him. Because they cut too deep and they cut something in his back that caused him to not be able to walk or go to the bathroom normal. And anyway, but before he died, there wasn't a sign of cancer for the last 5 or 6 years he lived.
Oh, wow.
And he lived altogether. It was almost about 25 years. It was 15 years, something like that. I got the years mixed up here. But anyway, I think he was the biggest example I've been able to talk about all these years. But he had a devout faith, and he never lost faith, and that helped him. And and oh my goodness, he's just helped so many people, because people would come in. We actually wrote a story about him, and people would get them stories, and then they would come back and get on the same stuff we had him on, and it's helped a lot of people. So his death, I've missed him so much through the years, but it was like his death, I guess, wasn't in vain, because he helped so many people, And so, anyway, I think he was probably, but he wasn't the only one. Oh my word, we've had dozens and dozens and dozens, but he's the one I can freely talk about,
Yeah, for sure. When I can speak to my experiences working here. Again, a lot of those conversations I alluded to earlier, that would, even just a person off the street that you would get into with customers and things, and just really strike a chord with them, and things would get emotional. A lot of it did start with conversations about you or Bill and your life experiences, and the challenges that you guys face, and how even working through the store and things that you guys were able to create a better life for yourselves, a better quality of life specifically, And it's really amazing whenever people lead a healthy lifestyle, the results that can come of that too,
Right.
It impacts everything, mental health.
I just feel so blessed that I was brought to this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And even before you did this, though, you mentioned that you were like a tourist guide.
Oh, yeah.
I know you had several occupations before, just out of curiosity. What were some of those occupations that you held before this?
Well, I was secretary and treasurer of Jefferson RSM School in Jefferson County for years, and worked, right there in the superintendent's office, did all that and do all that kind of stuff. And that helped me, though, here, because I can do books here now,
Yeah, bookkeeping.
And then my next, I guess the next job was tourism.
Yeah.
But that was so much fun.
Yeah,
oh, my word. That was so much fun. Every day was like a party, Yeah. But I tell you what's been a blessing to me, too, is being on the radio down here.
Yeah.
That has been really, I've reached so many people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I write these little short stories about my life, and some of them are crazy, but anyway, because I'm a little bit crazy, so anyway, because I wrote, the one I did today was about my wedding. I was on the radio this morning. I'm always on Froggy Station at 9:00 every Friday morning, and our wedding, we had some family problems trying to figure out what we was going to do. Not everybody was agreeing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the wedding was kind of a nightmare. Not the wedding, but the aftermath.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's been a real blessing to me, too, being on the radio. And just running this store has been a godsend, literally. I believe that, so. And I'm still working. I'm not going to quit. People say, why don't you quit? Like, what would I do?
Why not?
Go home and sit and rock or something,
Right, yeah.
Yeah. I had a woman that was working for me in the breakfast bar area, and she basically was kind of like a glorified tourist, but she's a breakfast hostess there. And she became like world famous. Like people would come back to just have breakfast from her because she would just talk so much about the area. Well, the two of you reminded each other quite a lot.
The same thing here.
Yeah,
they'll come in.
A lot of history.
Yeah, and what's the funniest thing is the ones that hear me on the radio recognize my voice.
Right.
They'll walk in and, you're the one on the radio, like that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
What's funny about her is she actually worked for the St. Louis football Cardinals for years, and worked up at the Jefferson County court system for a long time.
So she was known two places.
So she was, so she had a professional career prior to coming down here and doing stuff, but she kind of had that tourist blood in her.
That makes a difference. That's like me to speak, it's no problem at all when you've been speaking to 50 or 100 people once, all the time. And because I did those tours over there all the time, and you get to where, and I know I spoke at a funeral just recently and said, I didn't know you could get up and talk in front of people like that. And I said, well, I didn't know I
didn't know I couldn't.
I didn't know I couldn't.
That's I had an employee come up to me one time after a work meeting and was like, I didn't know you could get up and talk in front of people like that. And I was like, well, I got to talk to people all day long. And I got to talk to people I don't know. So it really doesn't make a difference if I got to do it in front of 4 people or 50 people.
That's the way. That's the way. But funerals are a little harder.
They are, it's a different,
because they're sad.
Yeah, definitely. It's a different platform for sure.
But no, I'm not. I don't do getting up in church real good though. Bill says it's because I'm only intimidated by God.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Doesn't that sound like something Bill said?
Yeah.
Well, that's because you're only intimidated by God.
Man, that's great.
Well, I never have done that lector thing in the church. I've always kind of let somebody else do it. But,
well, I think that's probably why I'm not, because I had to do that stuff in church when I was very young. So like it kind of, even though I was nervous doing it, you get over it quick.
Yeah.
So you don't think about how good those life experiences are, though, that prepare you for life going forward.
And they do help, don't they?
And even the tourism piece, you probably didn't even think that it was preparing you to run your own health food store.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, you're here today doing it, right?
Almost right at 33 years.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Well, Earth Mother Health Foods. Yeah. Earth Mother Health Foods, of course, is in Farmington, Missouri. If anybody's traveling through, we can highly encourage folks. In the episode link in descriptions, we're going to have all the details on how you can hook up with Earth Mother Health Foods. We'll have the Google listing as well as contact information and things like that. Mary Lee has just so much here, a wealth of knowledge, fantastic staff, various products.
A local gym.
Yeah.
The community's really blessed to have this.
And, one thing, too, I can definitely say, again, from an insider and outsider perspective is I don't think that the community has appreciated this business enough. And even though everybody knows who Mary Lee is and Earth Mother is and where Earth Mother's at, I don't think that beyond that Mary Lee's been given the roses that she should have been given a long time
ago. I agree with that. I've kind of taken for granted.
And
you know what I mean? A little bit. People do that when you've been around so long. You know what I mean? Right. I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
And the one thing I was really curious about picking your brain about today was the fact that you are such a strong businesswoman in Southeast Missouri, Farmington, Missouri specifically. And I'm sure that had a lot of challenges to even start with, because let's face it, it's a relatively conservative area politically, for good or for bad, however you want to look at that. But I think that a lot of folks over the decades have been intimidated by a very strong independent businesswoman like yourself.
I think probably I'd like to know the history on that. I might be the oldest businesswoman or the one that's been in business the longest ever here.
It's a very good, real and good possibility, short of changing.
I don't know that
generation.
Yeah, because it used to be most of the time it wasn't a woman running the business; it was a man.
Right. Was there any? We'll just call it political. I'm not saying necessarily Republican, Democrat, but just attitudes, families, old blood in the city, whatever the situation was. Was there a lot of adversity that you kind of faced? Started out as a strong independent businesswoman?
If it was there, I was not made aware of it, but I feel like it was there. You know what I'm saying? Because, I think it was there, but they never did just blatantly come out and I'll tell you this little funny story, and I don't care where it goes. They gave me an award for something downtown pride, something. And I was at the radio station when they were getting it ready, And so I came back down here, and here was the mayor and all the dignitaries, down here for this. And the biggest part of them never been in this building, And they walked in there, and Fred Dawkins from Dawkins radio station is in here. And I said, what's this all about? What's going on? And they said, you're getting the award. You're getting the downtown Pride Award or whatever it is. And I said, really? A backstreet merchant in Farmington getting an award? And they all kind of didn't know what to say. And then I said, good night. It took me 10 years to get a new sidewalk out of you people. Now here you're in your award.
Keep you happy.
That's hilarious.
It's funny. But they all laughed, but they didn't know. I was giving them a little bit of stuff there, But
Yeah.
Let them know that I got my own mind,
Yeah. Hey, those moments whenever you can seize on them are always ultra rewarding.
You don't get those off too often.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
But Fred Dawkins said, there he was. He was trying to give you a award. A whole bunch of them in there. Said you was hacking at him the whole time. Anyway, I thought it was funny.
That's fantastic.
And they all still speak to me, so I guess they didn't care.
Yeah, care enough anyways, right?
Yeah, right. No, it's okay. I think they're pleased,
Yeah.
In fact, somebody told me when I had to move from here when the building sold out from under me, one of the higher ups here in Farmington said, I think it's a shame we're losing this health food store downtown. I said, well, it wasn't my choice.
Right.
The building sold out from under me. And anyway, but it was a lady and she said, well, I just think it's sad that we're losing you down here. Now, that made me feel kind of good that they at least appreciated that I was down here,
Yeah.
So,
Well, the downtown area is an area that has had its moments of being neglected, and it's not a situation that's unique to Farmington. It's happened in a lot of cities.
Oh, that's almost all cities. But actually, to give Farmington credit, they do a good job of keeping downtown strong.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's been kind of the restoration process that they've went through as well with updating some of the storefronts.
Yeah.
Some of the restaurants that have come in.
Yeah.
I know back whenever our businesses were more active with the chamber and stuff, I would go to some of those meetings and they'd have developers come in and they'd even hire private firms out to come in and talk about, these are the other businesses we could bring into the area to help enhance the downtown and bring in more business into downtown in and of itself. And it seemed like they pretty much, everybody's spirits were in the right place.
Do you know where that the historic Long building?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm working real hard on that. Me and another lady here in Farmington. She's a native of Farmington, but we're working real hard to get that. That needs to be recognized as a historic building because it's on the Trail of Tears. And that's pretty important. It kind of gives me goosebumps when I think about the Trail of Tears went right past that building. And it needs to be recognized for that.
I knew that.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Yeah, there's a sign right down there. When you're coming down the one street and you turn it, it has historic trail.
It's got like a star on it?
Yes.
Yeah, I have seen that.
Yeah, and they've got a lot. Yeah, she and I have worked on trying to get those signs up and try to bring some history in here with the Trail of Tears because it needs to be.
Absolutely.
My grandparents actually had a trailer out in Caledonia. You come off 32, you're coming from Bismarck, and you're going to go right, and you're going to go towards the Valley R6 school district.
Yeah.
If you make that first right after you turn off 32, there's an old rock memorial with a woman's face carved in it, and she actually was a Native American who passed away on the Trail of Tears.
Yes,
and
that's cool. I'd like to see that. I haven't seen that.
Really neat. The last time I went out there, it was a little overgrown. They used to really keep really good care of it. And like her face is carved in it. People go out and lay flowers on it.
Oh, that's neat.
But yeah, it's really close to home. You're close to you. Right?
Yeah.
You should take your kids out there and check it out. But yeah, it's the first right you make after you turn off 32 right there.
First, okay.
Yeah. I forgot what that road's called.
There's a lot of other cool Native American history that's just really even close by here, like the petroglyphs in Washington State Park.
Yes.
That's
awesome too.
Pretty impressive, actually, if you go out and see that.
I think if they'd work this area a little more, they could pull a lot more tourism in here.
Definitely.
And it wouldn't hurt anything, I mean, to bring tourism in here. But they need to, I think.
This whole area depends on that.
Yes.
St. Joe
Well,
Park,
look at St. Gen. I mean, of course, St. Genevieve didn't tear all their stuff down because they've got everything down there. They didn't tear anything. I mean, they saved it. If it wasn't good enough to live in, you could put hay in it. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah, and St. Gen, a lot of people might not know this, even if they're from the area, is actually the oldest settlement west of the Mississippi,
Yes.
the European settlement that is
Yes.
west of the Mississippi River. And, you know, you can even go down and see the old smelters down
Yes.
there, and
Yeah.
there's historic homes, some of which
Yeah.
I'm sure you were a tour
Yeah,
guide
I've
for back
worked
in
in
the day.
a bunch of those. Yeah, I worked in a lot of them. But it's real rich in history.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And they, like I said, they take such good care of
They
it.
do.
You know? Mhm,
Yeah, they
mhm.
definitely do.
I love the river over there. I really
Yeah.
got a thing with the Mississippi. I grew up in the river hills of the Mississippi. They're in southern Jefferson County, northern St. Genevieve County. And I have to, ever so often, go take a trip to the river, you know.
Yeah.
I think that ferry ride's like one of the last ones.
Yeah, it's
in
going.
this area.
It's going again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the river's way down. I was there yesterday.
Mhm.
And it's, the pilings are out of the water, you know, where that it's,
We need some rain.
and the farmers over there, they've been praying for rain,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
praying for it because everything's so dry.
Maybe tonight, they say, so we'll see.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, we'll see. We definitely need it for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
this has just been so enjoyable.
Yeah, I'm glad that we had the chance to sit down and talk with
Right.
you. And I think that hopefully some of our listeners, watchers, followers make it out here and get the full Earth Mother experience and get to meet you and check out the museum room. And
Yeah.
and maybe they'll find something that works for them and changes
Yeah.
their life too.
Well, I have very knowledgeable employees.
Yeah.
Like his mom's been with me 24 years, and Melanie's been here 20 years. Karen just retired from 23 years. Madeline about 16. I mean, and then others 2 years, 3 years, you know, like that. But even the new ones are just, they come in so interested. My last one that I hired, he's just got his nose in a book all the time, you know, and that's good.
Yeah.
That's
He's
good.
soaking it up.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I know that a lot of people start out working here too. With, you know, I know Mom started working here because my dad, you know, fell ill and couldn't work anymore. And then my first opportunity to start working for you was to help with pay for his surgery and stuff, you know. And so you give a lot of people opportunities, and I know you already highlighted that a little bit earlier too. So you guys, I say that to say this: you're going to come in here and be a customer. This is the type of business that you're supporting.
Yeah.
100%.
It's a business that tries to help everyone.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Well, Mary Lee, we appreciate your time today.
I appreciate you giving me a chance to do this.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, this is Josh from ATI Podcast. For show updates and news about the podcast, follow us on social media. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ATI Podcast 22, on Twitter at podcast_ATI, on Instagram at the ATI Podcast, on TikTok at ATI Podcast. DMs are always welcome. Have a question for the show? You can always email us at atipodcastquestions@gmail.com. Stay safe out there.
This is Barrett from the ATI Podcast. Each week, Josh and I discuss current events, pop culture, music, TV, movies, politics, sports. Nothing is out of bounds. You can also tune in to learn about rising artists, small businesses, whether it's music, graphic design, filmmaking, or even a brick-and-mortar mom-and-pop shop. We will be spotlighting folks and their endeavors. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Anchor, or anywhere you enjoy your podcasts. Just search ATI Podcast. We would like to thank you for your continued support, and as always, please stay safe out there.